We do not. First up, Senator Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members or member of the committee that's here. For the record, I'm Senator Justin Brown representing the 16th Senatorial District. I appreciate the opportunity to present Senate Bill 633. Senate Bill 633 streamlines the licensings and regulatory standards applicable to money transmitters across the state. More specifically, this bill intends to accomplish the following: ensure states can coordinate in all areas of regulation, licensing, and supervision to eliminate unnecessary regulatory burden and more effectively utilize regulatory resources. Number 2, protect the public from financial crime. Number 3, standardize the types of activities that are subject to licensing or otherwise exempt from licensing. And number 4, modernize safety and soundness requirements to ensure customer funds are protected in an environment that supports innovative and competitive business practices. The industry benefits from clear, transparent, and strong regulatory requirements that are consistent across the states. Furthermore, industry played played a role in developing these final standards. The collaboration formed the process and led to a final product that supports innovative business practices while ensuring a safe and sound supervisory system. We do have some minor changes requested from the Division of Finance, and I believe that was distributed to the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to present this bill, and I will try to answer any questions, but I'm assuming and I hope there's experts in the room behind me that can help me along with that. Thank you.
I think you have some experts. Just a quick comment. We have a lot of people in here. We have a lot of people that I'm sure want to testify, and we have a very short window. So keep your testimonies succinct, short, don't repeat what anyone else says, and we'll try to get to everybody. And with that, I would ask for the first witness in favor of Senate Bill 633.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Alex Eaton testifying today on behalf of the Electronic Transactions Association. We have worked with Senator Brown, the Division of Finance, and the Council for State Bank Regulators to come up with this language. Basically what this is trying to do, Senator Brown explained it, is to streamline regulations across multiple states for electronic transactions. This is just creating uniform standards. I'm happy to take any questions, but appreciate the committee hearing this bill today.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Next up in favor of Senate Bill 633. Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 633? Seeing none. Anyone for informational purposes for Senate Bill 633? Seeing none. Senator, any final comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill.
Absolutely. This will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 633. Next up, we have House Committee Substitute for House Bill 863, Representative O'Donnell, and you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Representative Michael O'Donnell. I represent the southernmost part of St. Louis County, and I also serve as the chairman of the House Financial Institutions Committee. House Bill 863 is a package of 3 different bills that are consumer protections and transparency in investing. First, the underlying bill, House Bill 863, has to do with the issuance of green municipal bonds. In the municipal bond space, you see bonds that come across with a green bond label, and there isn't a really good industry definition of what that is. And all this bill does is require that 85% of the proceeds of that municipal bond issue be used in some sort of green project. That you can't just put a green bond label on this and not actually do what you're telling folks you're doing. Next is House Bill 824, which is the securities portion. That section has to do with ESG investing. It has to do with investment advisors simply notifying their customer when they're doing anything for an ES or G reason. And just requires them to file a disclosure. And then last is House Bill 769, which has to do with proxy voting in the retirement investing space, and that just requires that any of the money managers that manage any of the pensions just sign a disclosure saying that they're not taking these ESG factors into consideration, that they're simply focused on the returns for the pensioners. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for this bill sponsor, Senator Trent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the ESG notification language and what that would entail?
Sure. For the investment advisor. So
Yes.
So if you go to your investment advisor and you say, "Hey, I want to buy AT&T stock," you may have some kind of discussion with your advisor. Your motives may be profit. You may think, "Hey, they're doing great things in fiber or whatever." As long as that conversation never broaches anything in the ESG space, that he doesn't offer you a product either that does actually have an ESG purpose. So say you've got mutual funds out there that are focused on any of these spaces, ES or G. The challenge with that kind of focus is you're doing something other than your total return. It's requiring you, or you're giving up something for that. And so all the disclosure does is require that in the case where the advisor recommends something for some sort of ESG purpose, that they disclose that to you so that you as an investor understand that.
Well, so it looks like that written consent is required under subsection 3 of this section. I'm on page 7. And in subsection 3 right above it, it says the disclosure shall be provided to the client on an annual basis, no less than every 3 years, and the client shall consent to the disclosure in writing. What happens if the client doesn't consent? I mean, people just don't sign their stuff. You get this mailed out, and the client throws it away and never looks at it.
So the reason that language is there is we don't want to be a barrier for people doing this. You walk into your investment advisor and say, "Hey, I really think that I can do something with my investments to help the environment." That's not a problem. We're not here to stop that, but you'll still have to sign the disclosure. You just won't have to sign it with every single trade. So that's what the.
But my question is, what happens if it's a year's past? It's time for their annual signature to consent to this, and the client just doesn't respond to their mail.
So there isn't a requirement to consent. So the requirement. So if you walk into, like I said, you walk into your broker and you say, "I want to buy AT&T stock," there's nothing in that conversation that generates a need for this disclosure, and you continue to make investments that don't broach the topics of ESG.
Well, what is the purpose of section 3, subsection 3 there on page 7, where it says, "Thereafter, the disclosure shall provide to the client on an annual basis, no less than every 3 years, the client shall consent to the disclosure in writing"?
That's the case where that's part of your investment focus. You want to focus your investments on environmental. You shouldn't have to disclose every single time you buy a utility company because you think they're doing solar. Now you're buying a gas company.
I get that.
You don't want to do that every single time. Just to disclose that, it's just kind of a reminder that every 3 years, hey, you're still good with this. This is still our approach.
So my question is, what happens if they don't respond to that? Like maybe they still want to do it, but they just don't respond.
So it would be in the same way that the securities industry handles it, and maybe someone here can mention it. But there are cases where a client could refuse. So I've heard folks say in the kind of discussions that we've had surrounding this bill, well, we'll just, as an investment firm, we'll just have clients sign that disclosure every single time for every single trade, essentially whitewashing it. But the problem is, a guy like me isn't going to sign that disclosure. I buy PNC Bank. There's no ESG element to that. I refuse to sign that. And I read that disclosure and say, I don't want any of this stuff in my portfolio. I'm not signing. So yes, you're going to have folks that that won't sign it because they don't want their investments going down this road. But there are other cases, and this kind of came up in the conversations that we had in the kind of building this bill, that there are clients that don't sign. You know, this isn't new. This isn't the first disclosure that anybody's ever created. And there are times when customers refuse to do that. And I'll let maybe someone from the industry answer what they do in cases where clients won't sign a disclosure of this nature.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that explanation.
Thank you, Senator.
Further questions for the bill sponsor? Senator Hoskins.
Thank you to inquire. So, I mean, basically, in the simplest terms, what this bill does, it just says that, hey, as a fiduciary, as a financial advisor, I'm going to look out for my client and try and make them profit, and not focus on environmental, social, and governance things if that hinders making a profit.
And that's the pension side of it. So the pension side requires that they agree to that fiduciary responsibility.
Right.
The securities section requires that if they do want to do that sort of investing, that the client is made aware of that through that disclosure.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I do have one question. Would you just run through that again? Because it was my understanding that, or the way I read it, they were going to have to send out an annual disclosure, and the client was going to have to sign that. Is that not the way you were reading it?
That is not the case. The use of an extended or a blanket disclosure is about somebody who wants to invest in that space, that I want my investments to have an environmental focus. As opposed to signing it every single trade you do, you would sign it as a blanket agreement over the course of 3 years, and then renew that every 3 years. Hey, you still want to invest with this focus? Yes, I'm just going to need you to sign this.
So what happens if they don't sign it in the 3 years?
That's what Senator
and that's
Trent
I'm still
was
not
asking, and
I'm still not clear.
And I would have to ask someone from the industry what they do in cases, because take the example of you go into your investment broker and you tell them, hey, I want to invest in, I want to buy these, I want to write uncovered puts, some crazy investment that's really outside the focus of your investment objective. Say you're a conservative investor, but you come in with this risky strategy that a buddy told you about. That's going to be outside the scope of your investment objectives, and they're going to have to do some disclosures to kind of get you to agree, hey, we talked about this, we don't think this is in your best interest. And in some cases, those folks don't sign that, but I don't know what they do with that, if that precludes them from making that trade or how that works.
So you said to ask somebody from the industry?
So, well, yeah, we'll have someone here from some folks from the industry, or someone that's been in the industry for a
Okay,
while.
well, hopefully they can
He
answer
may
that
be able
question.
to answer that.
Great. Any further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. Do we have any witnesses wishing to testify in favor of House Committee Substitute for House Bill 863? Just a reminder, please fill out a witness form and state your name, and you may proceed when you are ready.
Madam Chairman, members, I'm the Commissioner of the Missouri Securities Division, which would be enforcing 409-115 and 409-117. I worked on drafting the bill with Representative O'Donnell. I support the bill.
Can I stop you for just a second? We need your name.
Douglas Jacoby.
Thank you.
I worked, as I said, with Representative O'Donnell on the bill. Secretary of State's office supports the bill, and I'm happy to field any questions you have.
Same question about the disclosure, the 3-year disclosure. What happens if they don't sign it?
So if the client doesn't sign it, then the brokerage firm doesn't have the authority from the client to actually incorporate ESG into the decisions that are being made in the customer's account. So the firm would have to stop incorporating ESG, or they'd be found potentially in violation of the law.
Senator Hoskins.
And that would be the same if the customer didn't sign any consent form. Or I know I used to have my Series 7 and 66 licenses and life and health licenses, and there was many things we would have to send out to the customer every year and meet with the customer every year, or else it impeded on our fiduciary responsibility. So there's other forms that are required to be signed by the client on an annual basis. Is that correct?
There are, for other topics that don't fall under the Missouri Securities Division's jurisdiction, they would be requirements of either the SEC or FINRA.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, in favor.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Elizabeth Altoff with the Missouri Local Government Employees Retirement System. Our board has taken an official position in support of the provisions in this bill specific to retirement systems, so we would just like to be on the record in support of such.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thanks for your testimony. Next up, in favor.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, James Harris representing the Opportunity Solution Project. Here just go on the record in support.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, in favor. Seeing none. Next up, is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 863?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Philip Arnzen with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we'd like to go on the record in opposition, specifically to the provisions in 409.115 and 409.117, which is the investment disclosure. We have a couple concerns regarding that. Overall, the biggest concern is we believe it is a new mandate. Financial firms are not required currently to have any sort of signed form for the state of Missouri to, at the beginning of a relationship with a client and advisor, for any transaction or for the ongoing relationship between a client and advisor. So that's the primary concern, is it puts Missouri in a different playing field than every other state. Most financial and securities law is done at the federal level. That way there's uniformity across the country. The other concern we have is that the definitions of ESG are vague and open for interpretation. It just says incorporating a social or environmental criteria. My definition of social or environmental might be different than yours. A good example would be if a factory decides to switch all of their lights from incandescent to LED, and then they promote that as we're going to save X amount of dollars as well as help the environment. Is that environmental, or is that for the financial benefit? As a result, many financial firms which are risk averse are just going to mandate that these forms be signed by every customer regardless of what the investment strategy is. So we believe that it would be costly, and we'll put a new mandate on any financial firm that does business in Missouri.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next up, in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Michael Berg, and I'm here representing the Sierra Club Missouri chapter. And first of all, we think that the state of Missouri and the pensions for Missouri and the regional pensions should have the ability in the future, if they desire, to put environmental criteria on investments. Right now, I mean, if you look at Moser's, this is not happening, so it's looking at an issue that's not going on. But if people want to do that, they in the future, we think that's a good thing to deal with environmental problems. And we also agree with the testimony before by the Chamber of Commerce that the terms are vague. The example of the light bulb is a good one. You also look at, what a lot of the given reasons these large investment firms are for what happens with this criteria. A lot of them, the claim, and you can look to different sides looking at this, is that you look at some of these criteria, it's in the long-term financial interest and not just the social interests. If you look at, say, the oil company, they might need to keep some of the, if you get something like Paris Climate Agreement actually adhered to, a lot of the wealth or the value of an oil company might not pan out because a lot of that stuff will be kept in the ground. So it's hard sometimes to determine what is the fiduciary and what is considered environmental, social, or ideological You've got an issue. There's similar bills going around all over the country. You look at the case of Indiana, probably the bill closest to this one. They show there'll be a cost. There'll be a cost to monitor the.
Can I interrupt you for
Yes.
just 1 second? We need to establish a quorum. I forgot to do that, and we've got somebody needing to leave, so I apologize,
Okay.
but we're going to stop and do that real quick.
Senators Crawford. Trent. Brown. Hoskins. Huff. Mosley. Roberts.
Thank you for that. We have established a quorum. You may continue.
Thank you. So look at there are much more extreme versions of this that are going around the country, but probably the one in Indiana is closest to this, and there will be some cost involved in going through all the voting of proxy shares, and also monitoring. It's not just about proxy voting; it's about monitoring. Whether or not these criteria are used for investing, and it's not clear that. I mean, the given reason is making sure that the pensions do not lose money based on this issue, but it's not clear that this is happening. If you look at what happened with in October when then Treasurer Fitzpatrick pulled hundreds of millions of dollars from BlackRock and put the investments in nice investment advisors, there was no evidence given that we're getting better returns from the new investment, and the cost per money invested is actually higher. So we don't support that. We also have some concerns about the green bond purchase portion, especially who is going to actually establish what is and is not a green bond. So we want a viable green bond market, but the biggest concern is about the pension.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Again, thank you for allowing us to pause and take that roll. Next up, in opposition.
There shouldn't be any indication of anything but great respect for the chairman, or the handler of the bill, and the chairman of the committee. Members of the committee, Jewel Paddock, registered lobbyist on behalf of Patriot Voices C4, that works on these issues around the country, and our lawyers have had a chance to look closely at this bill. And the best I can, and I know nothing about the legal implications directly, but other than the lawyers I'm depending on for their expertise, other than to say this is I think a prime example of the Brer Rabbit legislation. The forces that are against ESG reform across this nation and in Missouri have done a really good job at stifling most efforts to rein in this abuse of the fiduciary responsibility and investments to the taxpayers as well as to the investors. And the fact that this bill continues to move forward tells me its vagueness or exceptions swallow up the rule. Its lack of enforcement means that they can get around it, and so that yes, they oppose reform, but their lawyers have already indicated by their lack of killing this bill that it really doesn't do that. And I could go into some examples, but if you go into page 2, 6, and 7, while it states that you can't do ESG, there's always the but or the or, and so these firms that are promoting ESG investments and are doing that against the fiduciary responsibilities they've long held for their investors, I believe have acknowledged by their lack of interest in killing this bill that it doesn't exactly do that. So with that said, I'll be happy answering questions.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Next up, in opposition. Seeing none. Next up, or anyone here to testify for informational purposes only?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Mike Moorfield, Chief Counsel for PSRS Peers, the Teachers and Educators Retirement System, State of Missouri. Testifying for informational purposes only on the sections in 105-688 regarding both the fiduciary duty reaffirmation and then the proxy voting. For over 20 years, PSRS has had a policy that explicitly prohibits social impact investing and specifically prohibits ESG investing. It is our view as a Board of Trustees and staff that our fiduciary duty is to maximize returns for our nearly 300,000 members within prudent risk parameters. Additionally, regarding the proxy language that's in there, PSR as peers has long had a proxy voting policy, and we specifically also have a corporate governance focused policy that ensures that all votes are taken into account to maximize shareholder value. So be happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let the committee know we're really proud of this package in the House. We feel this is a practical, pragmatic approach, and the focus is consumer protection and transparency. So ask for the Senate support.
Thank you. This will conclude the hearing on House Committee Substitute for House Bill 863, and our final bill today is House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109. Representative Thompson. Representative, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present House Bill 1109.
You might pull that mic just a little bit closer.
Opportunity to present 1109. Basically, this bill is working with the Treasurer's Department and expanding a program that has been here for years. In fact, okay.
That's better. There you go.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my House Bill 1109, which is working with the Treasurer's Department to expand the program of MoBucks. MoBucks is an old program that has been around for years. When I had my bank, I participated in this in 1985, and it is a terrific opportunity to assist individuals on their interest rates during a rising time. Basically, we are increasing the amount, $200 million, and there is 123 banks that now participate. And the program, basically the treasurer establishes a rate each week, and then if a bank accepts, there is a CD deposit on file. And then they have instructions as to what they can charge the customer or the small business ag. And basically it saves the borrower about 30% on their interest rate. And so there is no risk to the Treasurer's Department, and it definitely helps the small businesses and ag. It is a program that is statewide, and basically it continues to grow. It will continue to grow in these times where we have increasing interest rates. It is appreciated out in the community. And basically, I mean, we're protecting the taxpayer dollars, and we're giving the rural communities, small businesses, an opportunity to grow. I have seen it very successful out there. It is an appreciated program, and I would be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Questions for this witness? I'm sorry, bill sponsor. Seeing none, anyone here wishing to testify in favor of House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Ian Dunlap with the Missouri Credit Union Association going on record in support of this, and thanks to the sponsor for bringing this forward.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else in favor?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Emily Lewis on behalf of the Missouri Bankers Association, happy to be here in support of the bill.
Questions for this witness? Sorry, trying to do two things at once. Seeing none, next up in favor.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Doug Nelson, private lobbyist on behalf of FCS Financial. I want to thank the sponsor in support of the bill.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, next up in favor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Philip Arnzen with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'd like to go on the record in support.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else in favor of House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109? Seeing none, anyone here to testify in opposition to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109? Seeing none, anyone here for informational purposes for House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Clayton Campbell. I serve as the Deputy Treasurer. Seated to my right is our Director of Investments, Bruce Ring. I will dispense with discussion of mechanics of the program in the interest of time and an assumption of your awareness of that, and simply provide a brief status update on the program as of this date. We are rapidly approaching the current statutory cap of $800 million for the MOBUCS deposit program, with there being approximately $672 million in pending and active deposits. All told, there are 963 active borrowers across the state, and another 330 people are in the pre-approval stage. Demand for the program has maxed out our staff's capacity, and there's no end in sight given the high interest rate and high inflation environment that currently exists. At the current pace, we anticipate needing to halt new applications by next month. As previously stated, we will be up against the $800 million cap. For situational awareness, we believe raising the cap to $1 billion would enable the Treasurer's Office to continue placing MOBUCS deposits into Missouri banks and putting Missourians' money to work for Missourians. With that being said, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I do have one question. So are you indifferent whether we pass the bill or not, since you're for info only?
The Treasurer's Office does believe that this bill would benefit Missourians.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Anyone else for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Representative, any final comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to present a good bill that helps rural and small businesses.
Thank you, Representatives. This concludes the hearing on House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109. I make a motion that we go into executive session. I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're in executive session. We have several bills to run through. I move that we take up Senate Bill 586. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. This is the bill of mine that we heard last week dealing with the earned wage access services, and I move that we vote Senate Bill 586 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Trent. Aye. Brown. Aye. Hoskins. Huff. Mosley. Voted yes. Roberts. 5.
And for the record, Senator Mosley did leave her votes here when she left. So by your vote of 5-0, you have passed Senate Bill 586. With the committee's approval, I would like to vote out House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109 that we just heard, because we've heard it before. I don't usually like to do that, but it's a pretty simple bill. We've passed it out of here already. So with your indulgence, I would like to do that. I move that we take up House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Again, this is the bill that we just heard dealing with linked deposits, and I move that we vote House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Trent. Aye. Brown. Aye. Hoskins. Huff. Mosley. Yes. And Roberts. 5.
By your vote of 5-0, you have passed House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1109. I now move that we take up, let me find it real quick. get my notes. It gets a little more complicated at this point. Okay. I move that we take up House Committee substitute for House Bill 521. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. This is the bill that we heard. This was Representative Henderson's bill, and it was dealing with motor vehicle financial protection products. Also, Senator Trent, I believe you had this bill as well, so you're very familiar with it. Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, I move that we vote House Committee substitute for House Bill 521 out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, Barb, would you please call the roll?
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Trent. Brown. Hoskins. Huff. Mosley. She was an aye. Roberts.
By your vote of 5-0, you have voted do pass House Committee substitute for House Bill 521. I now move that we take up House Committee substitute for House Bill 725. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. This is the bill we heard. This was Representative Francis's bill relating to property offenses involving ATMs, or smash and grab as we like to call it. We do have a committee substitute. I move that we adopt the committee substitute. Do I have a second? I have a second. Let me run through what the substitute does. So the underlying bill is the smash and grab. So that would be also Senate Bill 186 that we heard in here and was voted out 6-1. It also includes the link deposit bill, Senate Bill 657, which we voted out 6-0. It includes the motor vehicle financial responsibility, Senator Esslinger, that was voted out 4-1. It also includes the Division of Finance and the credit card bill, which voted out of here 7-0 and voted out of the entire Senate 31-2. It includes Senator Roberts' marijuana legislation, Senate Bill 63, which voted out of this committee 7-0 and out of the Senate 33-0. And it also includes Senator Trent's consumer legal funding, Senate Bill 342, which was voted out of here 5-0. Any discussion on the substitute?
Which bill number was this again?
Senator Roberts, we are on House Committee substitute for House Bill 725. Do you want to see the list of what's in there? Yes. I'm going to give him just a second to look over that. All right. Did I move for the adoption of the substitute? Okay. I move that we vote the House Committee. All those in favor of adopting the substitute say aye. Aye. Sorry, Senate Committee substitute. Let me do this again. All those in favor of voting for adopting the Senate Committee substitute say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now move that we vote House Committee substitute for House Bill 725 with Senate Committee substitute out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Barb, please call the roll.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Trent. Brown. Hoskins. Huff. Mosley. She was a no. And Roberts. 5-1.
By your vote of 5-1, we have do passed Senate Committee substitute for House Committee substitute for House Bill 725. And let's see, last bill up is House Committee substitute for House Bill 809. No, the list. Oh. Sorry about that. All right. I now move that we take up House Committee substitute for House Bill 809. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. This is the bill that we heard dealing with several financial affairs, and I'm going to run through what this has on it. Hang on one second. Okay, all right. So this, just for your information, this does not have a Senate committee substitute. It's the House committee substitute. So it's the bill we heard. The underlying bill is the financial classes that are required. That was the underlying bill. It also has the linked deposit language on it that we just heard and voted out of here. It has the credit card bill, which was also on that bill we just voted out. I'm sorry, let me back up. The credit card bill that's on this bill is the dealing with being able to use credit and debit cards with the Missouri Ethics Commission, which was heard in this bill last week. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to run through all this stuff. It has the Show Me My Retirement Savings Plan in it. That was Representative O'Donnell. It also has the Division of Finance and the credit card that I mentioned earlier. Those were both included in Senate Bill 13, which voted out of here earlier, 7-0. It has the commercial financing disclosure law. That was Senator Brown's Senate Bill 187. And that was voted out 7-0 as well. It has smash and grab the ATM language on it as well. And I believe that is everything. Okay.
Real quick, did you say we did vote out the Representative O'Donnell's legislation in a different bill? Was there a Senate companion?
No, we have not. No, this is that was not the one we heard today.
Okay,
it was.
gotcha.
This was a different bill.
Okay.
Yes, totally different bill. It's the one that started out. The things that I just ran through are all the things that he presented at that hearing, which was last week. Yes.
Okay.
I think almost all the things we've already voted out of here as well.
Thank you. And this is on 809?
Correct. Okay, I move that we vote House Committee Substitute for House Bill 809 out of committee. Do pass. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll, Barb.
Senators Crawford.
Aye.
Trent. Brown. Hoskins. Did he say yes? Vote with the chair. Okay, Hoskins vote with the chair. Huff. Mosley. She said yes. And Roberts.
6. By your vote of 6-0, you have passed House Committee Substitute for House Bill 809. I make a motion that we go out of executive session. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. This concludes our hearing. I, at this point, don't anticipate a hearing next week, but we'll just see how things go. I would like to not have one, so this may be our last. We actually could potentially do an exec session on some of these bills today, but we've already voted one of them out for sure, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you, committee, for all your work this session. If we don't meet again, and we are adjourned.